Hey everyone, my name is Corey, and today we are going to continue with our Discovering the Races. This will be part 2. I think in part 1 I ended with the gnomes, and we're just going to go into halflings. We are on Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, on pantheonmmo.com/game/races, and we have just been learning about this. This is the first time I've been reading through these, so let's get started with halflings. A fiery, youthful race filled with mirth, recklessness, and charm. But the exuberance of the halflings masks an ancient curse. Ooh, scary. Yeah, they look really cool. I mean, I want to have a little fox wolf pet on my shoulder. That would actually be super cool. All right. On the halflings. A refreshing blend of madness and mirth, the halflings of Wild's End have a youthful exuberance that never dims and a resolute spirit that makes them undefeatable. With the effortless stealth of a wolf and the devious charm of a child, there are few circumstances in which a halfling cannot work for the upper hand, especially in the trees of their home. Therefore, their reduced stature is an advantage, an unassuming and agile extension of their personalities and gifts, whether in danger, discourse, or dance. So are they going to have smaller hitboxes? Yes. Maybe. Make them harder to hit because they're smaller and their hitboxes are smaller? That would just make them too OP, especially in a PvP circumstance, probably. But there are gnomes and they're pretty small, so maybe you could balance it out. Let's see. Of their tale. It is said that if you spend one day on Terminus, spend it in the company of the halflings and their hideaway town. An inherent mirth and musicality sit atop their combustible depth, which make friendships easy, passions inflammatory, and loyalty inescapable. And like many of the castaways on this globe, the halflings were not always so composed. At one time a people of full stature, their lot was to roam across the vastness of their ancient homeworld, Hirith, under constant fear for their survival. At one time, a people of full stature. So they were like human-sized, like normal? Wow. On the run, Marthas spoke. We are always on the run. We've never had a home, never a perch from which to look over ourselves, not a time by which we pace our work or rest, not a place from which we depart and to which we return. We've barely existed because we've never stayed in one place long enough to change it. So extremely nomadic, always running, always moving. Father, you have spoken to me the tales of our flight since I was a child, and I have heard in those pages a line unspoken. For Kieran, the ward of flame revealed himself to me in the wood. As he has so many of our people since first sight of his appearing. Yet I believe he means us not to run. I believe he means us to fight. Excerpt from the Maiden and the Lad. Kieran is a ward of flame, revealed himself to me in the wood, so he is invisible, but can show himself to whoever he wants. Maybe he's like a spirit or something. Or is he one of their gods, like on their Pantheon? Maybe. Thereby, through the people known as the Kiri, was the town of Kieran Sound born. I like him already. Kiri. A name taken to honor their protector Kieran, the Ward of Flame. For there were 6 wards of Hirith, though Kieran loved this race above them all, and they had adopted his name in thankfulness to his care. But the Ward of Flame was not charged to watch over the Kiri. Rather, his was to rule over a race beneath the surface of Hirith. Yet Kieran loved the light and his people, though as punishment for his rebellion, he was sworn to never speak to the Kiri, yet could lead them in silence for a time. So the Ward of Flame, so he was supposed to be like taking charge of people beneath the surface, but it sounds like he kind of rebelled against that duty and wanted to, talk and be around the Kiri. But in this hour, the discernment and bravery of a young Kiri named Marthas rallied his nomadic race to claim a land for their own. For many years they had feebly escaped from one habitation to the next, fleeing a dogged adversary known as the Ferath. Yet in the mountains of Omel, Marthas led a defense against the Ferath. In the height of battle, the ward Kirin added to the first sight and granted him a first magic to wield fire. The ward Kirin added to the first sight and granted him a first magic to wield fire. So Kiri came to Marthas and was like, okay, I'm going to reveal myself to you, basically, which must be this first sight. And with that reveal, he was like, I'm also going to let you wield fire. From this, the Ferath retreated, never to threaten the people again. And so too did Ward of Flame forever depart, never having uttered a single word to the race he so long watched over. Oh, so he didn't even talk to him. He was just like, he just appeared and bestowed fire and left. Kirin Sound prospered in short order, the young mountain town benefiting from residents proud to till. So, like, proud to peasant, basically, like people who till the ground. Clear and build upon their own land. Oh, wait. Kirin Sound prospered in short order, the young mountain town benefiting from residents proud to till, clear, and build upon their own land. Okay, yeah, I was reading that wrong, sorry. Before long it behaved more like a kingdom, and after Marthas, rule was passed through a line of monarchs until the coronation of King Olenspeth III. Yet on that night, the new king personified the soft luxury of Kirin Sound's era of fortune, imbibing the present and hazy on the past. For the mountains of Omel held another kingdom far below its heights, the realm of Malsth, the Laughing Wraith, king of specters. Kirin's gift to Marthas had caught the Laughing Wraith's attention long ago, so the flame, and on this night he sought to ensnare his descendants. Pretending to honor King Olenspeth, a disguised Malsth presented the choice of two gifts to the regent, eternal life or a reign of peace. When the naive king chose to never die, the Laughing Wraith howled for glee and revealed himself. Soaring above the assembly, he cursed the entire population with a birthright affliction that would diminish their physical maturity of the next 10 generations. Diminish the physical maturity. King of Spectres, the Laughing Wraith. The last generation of the race would be born only as souls, which Malsth foretold with a squeal would be used to restore him to physical life, along with the might of the first magic. King Olenspeth was granted his portion, however, fated to watch his people disappear into ethereal subjugation. So everyone turned into souls? So for 10 generations, they're going to diminish physical maturity, and then at the very last, they're only going to be souls. Yet in the 5th generation, a maiden of Marthas's line named named Leone, sought out the Wraith in his cavernous underworld. Deceiving him with a disguise herself, she challenged Malsth, who thought her a harmless, misguided child. By this time, her people had been reduced to permanent adolescence, even at the peak of their lives. And though truly a youth, Leone was a great student of riddle and the tricks of the Laughing Wraith. Declaring herself, she wagered the remaining 5 generations of her people against Malsth's wit, and the greedy king took the play without contemplation. So gleeful was he that when Leone proposed a further ante, Malsth again complied. Your laugh, the maiden spoke into the sonorous deep, If I outwit you, we Kiri shall gain your laugh, and you shall fall forever silent. Though Molth became solid at the thought, his hubris permitted him to consider, but only for a moment. Agreed, he returned, in a voice like 1,000 vapors. Oh, agreed, the maiden and the lad. Yet threaten and travail as he might, Molth could not unwind her riddle. Trapped in his greed, the wraith surrendered his laughter, and the suffocating curse upon the Kiri was broken. Molth's laugh, for decades the haunt of every nightmare in the kingdom, was transformed to the emblem of his victim's joy, and the laughing wraith became the silent wraith forevermore. In that hour, their new namesake as Halflings took root, for the curse could only be halted and not undone. Excuse me. This fifth of 10 generations embraced their halving as a harbinger of mercy. Upon Terminus, there are evidences of that past still alive in Halfling society. The S-Caps, many of whom still carry the blood of Kiri nobility, have a high but sincere mind about themselves and would return to Heareth and Kirin if they could. Maiden Clan is an unrevealed group, even amongst the Halflings themselves. Seeking to honor the sacrifice of Leone, they care little for the internal affairs of Wild's End, often venturing far beyond it. The Nothi are an unrepentant wild breed. They fight, sing, and adventure with, as they believe, justified rebellion, embracing the youthful gift of the unfulfilled curse. Their heritage as Wraith Hunters is dreadfully serious, however. To avenge the wrongs of Molth, they persecute his ilk in every crevice of Terminus, chasing whispers that the silent wraith smolders in secret. Somewhere among the realms. So this wraith cursed them, and then Leone, deceiving him with the guys she challenged. So they only grow to permanent adolescence. She wagered the remaining 5 generations of her people against his wit. So basically, she's like, instead of diminishing the physical maturity further and then eventually turning them into souls, she traded the last half of that portion of the curse against him, so that instead gained his laugh. Okay. All right. Let's look at their racial bonuses. Wild Mind grants innate resistance to charm and mesmerize effects. Dagger specialization. Increase dagger skill by 10 points, so they're going to be really good to be wielding daggers like rogues. The Fire of Youth grants a bonus to the effect of consumables. Oh, so, hey, be a cook. Cook your food. Wraith Hunters grants a bonus to damage inflicted against wraith targets. Oh, nice. So, anything that is considered a wraith, they'll do bonus damage to. Halflings have an advantage against the deranged disposition. Very nice. Does advantage mean like more damage versus them or more chance to hit? I don't know. Excuse me, I've got something in my throat. I'm trying to get out, I think. Humans. Since the dawn of Thronefest 5 centuries ago, humans have stood at the pinnacle of influence, surviving threats against their walls and those from within. On the humans. True power speaks not a word, yet its presence is deafening. The city of Thronefest has been that presence for the humans for nearly 500 years. and to know their heights of power is to behold the capital, a breathtaking jewel in the light of dawn. The breadth of their influence is glimpsed in the majestic navy, unrivaled on the open waters. Students and masters of nearly every art and discipline, humans' middle-rung size and strength is perhaps alone mediocrity, their oft flamboyant pride not withering before kings, ghouls, or dragons. They look very proud, very regal, and very awesome. I mean, look at that armor. I mean, even this guy's like scholarly robes. Very cool. Very cool. Of their tale. Of all the multitudes scattered across Terminus, no other group has been so defined, aided, and threatened by their leaders as the humans. Yeah, that's because humans like to bicker and argue amongst themselves. When first arriving on the continent that became Kingsreach, the frail colony was helpless under a winter so stark it was called cursed. Only by heavy reliance upon the nearby elves of Fair Thale did they outlast the tempest. Yet in the thaws of spring, the human king Amensol rallied his people to found a city all their own, Havensong. Settled in a forest at the base of the Rowan Mountains, the town was a jewel of dedicated effort, born from a people unified by their harrows and trials. That very year, Amensol and his queen welcomed their firstborn son, Avendir, as heir, and the fate of the race was aimed to soar. Yet less than 25 years later, the humans were facing extinction. Holy cow. They were getting beat up. 7 years into the Deicide War, the ravaging lord of the Revenant permitted one of the humans' former gods, Osari, rain down upon Havensong every nightmare of war his armies possessed. Permitted one of the humans' former gods, Osari. So Osari betrayed the human gods and joined the ravaging lord of the Revenant. The undermanned city endured a 3-week siege, and King Amensol was cast among the corpses of his soldiers, slain by Osari the Betrayer himself. The high mortal's fury culminated in having every sundered shred of the ruined city carried to the cliffs of Rulun and thrown into the churning seas below. What? So Osari said, we are wiping the city from existence, and they took every piece of it and carried and threw it off a cliff. Wow. The young heir Avendir spent his first night as king shepherding survivors back to the silent sanctum in the belly of the Rowans, not stopping for the dawn or to grieve. So Avendir really stepped up to the plate, gathered his people, and got away. When the Deicide War turned in favor of the Sacred Six races, Avendir gained a broad reputation for battlefront leadership and also for his gift of steering oration. So he was very charismatic. His famed Speech of Souls is still repeated amongst humans and elves. That is powerful. Credited with reviving the hearts of the surviving dead. A reverence to the broken-hearted victors of the war. With the bold vision of his father, the first king out of the sanctum inspired his people with the founding of Thronefast, a coastal seat of power that flourished into the preeminent trade and commerce hub on Terminus. At the time of Avendir's death in 525 IH, the capital city had no equal in wealth or influence, no peer in beauty or acclaim, and his passing was honored across 4 continents. So there's more than 3 continents. There's 4. Or there's at least 4. Over 450 years later, the humans are still prospering, though the heritage of sacrifice and service has been exchanged for vice amongst much of the aristocracy. Nevertheless, Amenthiel, the Lady King, a true blood heir of Avendir, has shown traits of her ancestors' character and composure. Since the horrifying catastrophe at Azeris took the life of her husband, as well as her predecessor to the throne, Amanthiel's nerve and shrewdness thwarted enemies of a suddenly weakened Thronefast. In a speech shouted to peasant and well-born alike, Amanthiel set the course of the nation like a steady captain emerging from the clutches of a maelstrom. While the humans have endured yet another peril, their city glimmers like the ancient crown set upon their fair regent's dauntless brow. For now. For now, cliffhanger. All right. Let's look at their racials. A people inspired. Increases melee, ranged, and spell haste by 2%. So really, whatever class they choose and whatever weapon setup they choose. Whoa, I'm like ruining my stuff. Seems to be increased. So they're pretty good at everything. Wanderlust. Grants a bonus to faction gain with neutral factions. This also increases experience gained through exploration. So, good. Grants bonus faction with neutral faction. Yeah. Increase experience gained through exploration. So, they level up faster with exploration or they get more experience. Shield specialization. Increases shield mastery skill by 10 points. So, good with a shield too. They get more haste, and they're better with shield. Thronefast and Charm. Increases the effectiveness of skills and abilities modified by charisma. Because Avendir was really charismatic. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Humans have an advantage against the alarmist disposition. Alarmist. So each one of these, each one of the races are have advantage against a different disposition so far. It seems. So, really nice. Alright, we got Ogres next. There's Ogres. Playable race. Oh, look at that. What is going on here? Mirror image. Oh man, these guys look big and built. Is that like a bone pickaxe? It's like a bone pickaxe. Ogres. Once a unified and victorious host, the Ogres require a new breed of warriors to restore their heritage of militant glory. Yeah, that totally fits Ogres. That's awesome. On the Ogres. With their hulking presence... Oh, and there's quite a bit here. With their hulking presence and a culture that values the brutal skills of battle above refinements or leisure. With their hulking presence and a culture that values the brutal skills of battle above refinements or leisure. So they're all about the battle. The Ogres of Broken Maw are perilously dismissed as primitive by the uninformed. Yet careful study would reveal a race that relishes the dance of warfare tactics and in whom resides an unmatched respect for valor and courage, whether friend or foe. When calm, Ogres are cautious and considerate before action. Good, so they're not just bloodthirsty, mindless, blah, I'm just gonna go smash on walls. They actually are kind of thoughtful. See, their emotions and their incomparable size wreaks unpredictable ends. Okay. Of their tale. Gorok. A world of glacial ranges, magma flows, expansive mountain plateaus, and cave jungles where the very insects were said to grow to the size of a terminus halfling. Okay, so everything is huge. On the continent of Suroth dwelt the 7 clans of the Ogre race, coexisting only by forced observance of sacred borders. These boundaries were handed down by the deities of the Graven Hold, along with the cryptic 7 tomes of war. I like that they actually have like a society and are smart, rather than just dumb brutes. One bestowed to each clan, the tomes leveraged a promise of unrivaled power against a warning of permanent defeat. Only by 7 native hands will their seals be opened. Only under 7 native eyes will their words be understood. Only in peace will you thrive in your war. Lose only one, and none will endure. The Invocation of the Sevens. The Gravenhold hid the bulk of the tomes' knowledge within an indecipherable labyrinth of runes, until a time when the volumes would be shared amongst the 7 clans equally. If even one tome was destroyed, the Pantheon would permit the Ogres be wiped from the face of Gorok. So the Pantheon was like, if you do not protect the tomes, you're dead. However, there was no mandate that they be used. Thus, within their territories, each militant clan thrived to the extent they respected those limits, to the vast wisdoms of the tomes remaining untapped, for no clan lord would dare share his birthright with another. Each clan handled their tome in their own manner. Bloodmare commissioned a hereditary order of mages to decipher the runes apart from collecting them all. Way of Astur kept theirs suspended over a pool of magma beneath their mountain fortress, chained to 6 blind warriors spread about the cauldron, illuminated only by the molten rocks. If they perished, so did the tome, an effective, if perilous tactic that illustrated the ogre mindset in battle. My foe dies, or we both do. Never give up. Never surrender. Okay, I had to finish that quote. That was from Galaxy Quest. Alright, the smallest clan of the 7, Black Moon, memorized the few legible runes from childhood, relying on them for survival more than any other. But from prosperity to poverty, circumstance only masked an instinct that welled up in each clan, rising from the soul of every ogre, male or female. Dominance by right of conquest, and there exists no proving measure for an ogre greater than defeating another ogre. Alright, yeah. I believe the 7 tomes were given to keep us from destroying ourselves, though the Gravenhold did not say this with words. I have studied for long days and nights, even from forbidden copies of other tomes, chained to the same stake as my father and his. It is all a lie, I fear. Maybe there is power in the tomes. Maybe there is not. We will never know, and that was always their purpose. Drukos the Disciple? Bloodmare. When cast upon the naked land of Terminus, I just wonder how this was it a portal that transported these races here? Like, what happened when cast upon the naked lands of Terminus? It's almost like their gods just moved them. When cast upon the naked land of Terminus, the frail bounds between the clans ruptured in haste. After aeons of forced restraint, total war arrived. The scale of this conflict would have consumed the race had not a dark messiah risen from the chaos. Rothek, clan lord of the Black Moon tribe, took his tribe to a mountain ridge far to the south, claiming it called his name. Do they mean he claimed it and called that piece of land his name? Like, this is Rothek. Into this haunt he trekked alone, with the tome of the Black Moon, whispering that the secrets of the runes could be opened therein. Missing for weeks, as the red ogres of the Dark Sun assaulted the last of his men, Rothek emerged from the mists and shadows, forever changed. Clouds of dust filled the air. Down the great bowl of the haunted lands of the Dark Sun ran, numbers very great. We would bring them into our death. Then I heard Rothek's bellow, like a mountain when it breathes fire. The warriors of Darksun stopped and looked to the skies. But he was already in front of them. I still cannot say what I saw, but the wall of the bowl was covered in their blood. Their corpses are still frozen in the crust of the earth. None survived. Krogad, Black Moon Lieutenant. With the powers of an unlocked tome, Rothuk declared himself the Black Moon King, making an unprecedented claim as lord over all 7 clans. Wow, he came out with his tome and he's like, I am your leader. In a ruthless campaign, he validated this title, slaying the 6 rival clan lords with his own hand. All opposition collapsed beneath the surging tide of the Black Moon, each tome taken in turn. In victorious froth, the king desecrated a sacred shrine of ancient Terminus, an ominous statue of a departed rainborn dragon. This monolith stood as a reminder of the latent authority on the planet. Departed rainborn dragon. So dragons were like in charge of the planet, kind of like their guardians. That of the bloodline of the Dragon King himself. Yet in one fearless stroke, the Black Moon King tore off the beast's jaw, casting the Hulk at his feet, breaking its maw. This is the statue, right? In a display of gross mockery, the king set his throne inside of the mouth of the disfigured regent. From that seat, he unleashed the unified ogre host upon their continent of Rainfall. Okay, so Rainfall, White Thaw, and King's Reach are the 3 continents, although we learned there was a 4th. Though his ravenous eye cast out across the whole of the world. Oh, he unleashed the unified host upon Rainfall, though his ravenous eye cast out across the whole of the world. So he wanted to take his whole army and just conquer everything, the whole world. Yet this era of conquest would not endure. The king was increasingly afflicted by the very powers he used to terrorize his foes. With a muttering throat and eyes that never closed to sleep, observers believed the dark curse of the breached tomes wreaked a greater claim upon the king with each victory. When the ceaseless whispers wreaked too great a madness upon him, the undefeated king abdicated his throne and vanished. So he went and killed all of the rival clan lords, took their tomes, and it sounds like he was opening them and reading and like gaining the power from each tome. Wow. And then he just had so much going on that he grew mad with the power. I heard his bellow the last time. He was in great pain. I ran to look, but the king was gone. He took the tomes with him. We were like islands behind a giant ship, lost. All we gained on this planet, lost. Our king, lost. Rothuk, my old friend in battle, lost to the sands. Krogad, General of Broken Maw. So he went from Krogad, the Black Moon Lieutenant, to the General of Broken Maw. Leaderless, the ogres were unable to hold on to their blood-soaked gains. Against defeats, rivalry, and betrayal, their fabled instincts seemed to have fled with their king and his books. When the revenant forces fell upon Broken Maw, the reeling nation sought shelter in the Ashen Sanctum, themselves devastated like any common race. In this current frail age, the ogres are pitched in battle again. Their bitter rivalry with the hounds of Wos-Che smolders afresh, requiring warriors born of the race's native ferocity, leaders who can unify the fractured host. Yet beneath those aims burns the reclamation of the tomes of war, a birthright stolen by their own native hand. That's a pretty intense ogre story there. All right, let's look at their racials. Oh man, they look so cool. All right. Broken Maw's Grit. Ogres gain extra attack rating from each point of strength. So, yeah, heavy strength, strong, and just attack rating. Usually in most games in general, attack rating basically increases like chance to hit monsters. I'm not sure if that's the way that Pantheon is going actually with that stat, but that's what I understand it to be. So gaining extra attack rating would make monsters easier to hit with each point of strength. Not sure. I'm not saying that's how it works, but that's how I think it's going to work. Staggering strength increases critical damage by 5%, and they just get more crit. They're just so strong. They just hit way harder. Battle Hardened grants an innate 25% chance. That's so big. To resist non-magical stun effects. This becomes 100% immunity to non-magical stuns during battle trance. They can just not get stunned from physical damage. So, wow. That's so good. Ogres have an advantage against the bloodthirsty disposition. Yeah. Wow. Super strong. That's really good. All right. Scar. Whoa. These look like little demon undead things. Look at that. Cleaver. He's dual wielding. And this is just a big bone sword with these protruding spikes. These guys, these guys are pretty crazy. Let's read about them. Scar. With an insatiable greed and appetite for carnage, the Scar fear nothing and have proven to be their own greatest adversary. So a lot of infighting, and they're just bloodthirsty and just rah, rah, rah. All right, on the Scar. If there was an opposite to any good thing in every race, the Scar would stand alone in the extreme. Suicidally vicious. Suicidally vicious, tribal, and short-sighted, the Scar fear only their Nine God, and are their fervent only in their hatred. Okay. A ravenous desire to consume fits with their thin, predatorial size and build. Oh, they're like just like kind of skinnier and more agile, more predatory. And they attack to overwhelm quickly, lacking exceptional endurance. Their role on the stage of Terminus has the most uncertainty, for their battles rage as much within Skargal as outside of it. So they seem very like guerrilla warfare, hit and run, fast attack style of fighting. Of their tale. Okay. What truth can be grasped about a race that keeps no written record of its past? The futile search for knowledge regarding Terminus's most recent arrivals had been compelled more by concern than curiosity, until the elves stole from Skargal one unfortunate informant, a young Kagan slave named Bak Noi. Her testimony has borne scrutiny and the passage of time horrifyingly well. It was a lens that helped burn through the fog of myths and madness that attends these awful beasts, her broken translated words piercing a veil of fear and assumption. They spoke of a planet called Deshoth, but without a shred of longing. Their one deity had a name very similar, Deshath, which we learned means the Nine God. Towards it they held something much closer to hate. Bak Noi, the Kagan account. The peculiar sovereignty Deshath consists of 9 personalities at once. Ooh. Wow. Or perhaps 9 separate beings in one accord. There is evidence of both. So it's unclear. It's like, okay, is it one person with 9 different separate personalities, or is it 9 people just all of one, all aiming for one goal, basically? In that age, there was no Scar, but a race known as the Azagn. Once nomadic, the lands of the Azagn, inhabited on Deshoth, were not their own, and they bartered for it as a mercenary nation, leasing their bodies to the dominant military force in the region, known as Fasok. This name endures among the Scar as something of a harsh slur or profane rebuke, invoking immediate retribution and bloodshed. Oh, so I just swore in the Scar language. Whoops. For generations, this treaty caused the tidal Azagn population to wane beneath Fasok campaigns as if they were moons. What? For generations, this treaty caused the tidal Azagn population to wane beneath Fasok. So the Azagn are a race. Blah, blah, blah. They bartered for it as a mercenary nation, leasing their bodies. But then the Fasok were the dominant military force in the region. And the Fasok were using these people to also help end the people? Lean years saw the Azagn retaining less and less of their freedom, descending into pure slavery to Fasok. Yet in this service, the nation thrived, enforcing the mandates of their oppressors with stark brutality, delivering savagery upon the peoples onto which they were loosed. The familial tribes within the Azagn competed for the scraps of their owner, like a nation of abused vampiric hounds. If any fault could be found in their service, it was that their effectiveness was too great. They were too good at slaughtering and, their havoc too primal. Beyond this trade, the Azagn had no ambition, for war was the same, whether slave or free. I overheard them call that time Skel Hnath. That was the name they shrieked at all the slaves, Skel. Never anything else, always and every time, Skel, Skel. They even demanded we call each other by it, though we spoke our real names in secret. The Kagan account. Fate would have been gracious to grind the Azagn to dust in that era. Instead, a priestess of the Nine God altered their collective course forever. A servant of Perish in the Nine, neither her original name or race have survived on record. What is clear, however, is that her aim was to unleash the Azagn from slavery into a nation of warriors under her dominion. The priestess's first act of liberation was vengeance upon Fasok, which left the kingdom unrecognizable and birthed the Azagn legacy of ruination. So this priestess came in and was like, hey, guys, let's rebel and start our own. Let's be free of this slavery and start our own faction. Drought, famine, and devastation attended every gain, for there was no principle of their conquest, not even retribution, only to consume. The whole of Deshoth would have been eaten away in the wake of the Azagn onslaught. Thus, the Nine God interfered. Its delivery was swift, chaining the apostate priestess of Perish for 1,200 years to the Azagn, a century for each nation the campaign destroyed, including their own. From the Azagn, the Nine God took the ability to reproduce, though their inert genders would stay intact. As a sign to all who would encounter the banished race, the bones of their face and skull. Oh, wow. As a sign to all who would encounter the banished race, the bones in their face and skull would be pushed through the skin, marked as heinously as the death they sowed across the realms. The Nine God renamed the Azagan the Scar, sealing the wound of their sins for all time. So that is their bones of their face protruding from their skin. It looks like more bones than just the ones from their face are protruding, though. Unless that's just like a bone armor. But it looks like it's like their ribs, almost, or something coming out. Wow. The Nine God was like, boom, you can't reproduce and your faces are wrecked. There was something about that name, Scar. Their hatred of it was unmistakable, yet still they spoke it to each other. It was as if they were forced to use it, as we were forced to use Skell. The Nine God, who they honored with dead hearts, must be the one thing they respect, perhaps even fear. The Kagan account. Upon the priestess, the Nine God lay the greatest humiliation, transforming her into the lone reproducer of the Scar. Oh, with an ever-pregnant womb like that of a common colony of insects. That's disgusting. From that day forth, she would serve as both the queen and the mother of her violent offspring. The Nine God gave her the name Avarish, calling out the black-hearted lust for consuming she imparted to the Azagan. She is kept in a large chamber far below the dead shear. Some Skell, slaves I mean, said that the Scar kept her body preserved even then. So they seem to have long life. Like, the apostate priestess was chained for 1,200 years to the Azagan, and then she was also turned into the lone reproducer of the Scar, and her name was changed to Avarish. Oh. She's kept in a large chamber far below the dead shear. Some Skell, slaves I mean, said that the Scar kept her body preserved even then, though I never looked upon her mercifully. But I know one who did. He couldn't say what he saw for months. Then only, may she never live. That was strange to me, but so much was horrible and strange in Scargol, and while I long to see the last of my people freed, there is much I pray to forget. The Kagan account. This is from the Kagan account. In the landfall event on Terminus, that deified... Oh wait. In the landfall event on Terminus, the deified Avarish perished. So now the race is on a timer, because the more they die, they don't have no way to reproduce. And yeah. Though 7 Scar were pushed from her womb before she died, it is assumed by some that her death annulled the Avarish curse, as those 7 Scar were able to produce offspring. Okay, I should have just kept reading. Dang. Or else the race technically would have, gone extinct. As have their descendants. Whether or not this supposition is correct... I'll just take a quick pause. That just seemed like it would be cool, like if that was like the story right now, where it's like, okay, our hive mother, basically, the person who creates more of us, is dead, and now we're like, whoa. That'd have been some cool story to explore. Whether or not this supposition is correct, the population Scargol is robust. The region itself is miserable to the eye, profane to the nose, and a tragedy to the land upon which its inhabitants have desecrated. A monolithic fragment of Deshoth, the aforementioned dead shear, towers into the terminus clouds, the lone towers into the terminus clouds, the lone topographical feature and a marvelous silhouette that terrifies in the light of day. On the ground, the roots of the Azagan slave clans are still alive, breeding a chaos in Skargol like an asylum where the prisoners are their own guards, and sometimes eat them. They just sometimes eat each other. This culture of figurative and literal cannibalism has kept the Scar threat subdued far better than any external force could have hoped, and will likely to do so for many years, if the Avarish is truly in death's keep. Alright. That is just a crazy story of a crazy race. Of bloodthirsty, maniacal Scar. Long suffering. Increases max health by 5%, so hey, they get more hit points, they can take more of a beating, because they're always just fighting each other and eating each other and just constantly in war. They've grown. Yeah, long suffering. Fear of the Nine God grants an innate 20% resistance to fear effects. 20% is so much. Alright, Pack Hunter. Increases movement speed up to a maximum of 5% when in range of Scar group members. That is really cool. So if you find other Scar, and I guess if you're in a group and you find other Scar, you can just run together and run faster. And you just have little war bands of Scar, like guilds and stuff of just full Scar that run around. That's really cool. Scar have an advantage against the predatory disposition, plus X% to damage dealt, minus Y% to damage received, may also nullify certain aspects of the disposition's effect. I wonder, it's interesting that they are putting kind of what the advantage is against the disposition, and I wonder if this is kind of like the same for, if this is the same, like if this is what having advantage against the disposition actually is. More damage dealt, less damage received, and also may nullify certain aspects of it. So, interesting. All right. Well, that takes us back to the archive, which we did in the first video. So we have gone through all the races. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. There's some really cool races in here. Yeah. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.